Okay. Very good. And you can hear me on stream? Perfect. So just see to it that you sit comfortably. Close your eyes. And just sense this moment for a while. Whatever you experience. Doesn't matter if you're comfortable or maybe the body is uncomfortable in some way, or there is emotional content, or there's a lot of thoughts, there's some resistance. Whatever is happening. Just sense it. There can be a sense of slowing down as you get aware of the present moment and its content. Just allow that feeling. And just notice the transient nature of everything. That every sensation comes, stays for a while and goes. And that it is in a constant flux, constant movement. And as you notice that everything is changeful, you automatically stay as that is not changing. This is the beauty of awareness. Moves you out of the ideas of the mind and into the witness, into awareness itself. And if you're new to this, it might seem like a little bit of a struggle, because the mind's grip is quite strong in most people. And if you've been practicing for a while, it might be easier. But even if you get drawn in by your thoughts and the content of your experience, you come back to just being aware of it. To just staying naturally as you are. And you might have the feeling that there is like a pocket that you can stay in, which is quiet. This is the first sense of the stillness, like a balance act. Like you stay and you can just refrain from going into thoughts. And even if you don't have much experience, it will always be easy in a group setting like this. And remember, you don't have to do anything with your thoughts. Don't resist them. Don't try to make your mind quiet. Just stay in this moment. The deep relaxation in this moment happens in acceptance of your experience. So you don't have to fix your experience. You just have to accept the present moment as it is. It's not a mind game that plays with thoughts and the acceptance of the content of thoughts. It's just accepting that thoughts are happening. And you might notice when you sit that there is subtle resistance or a certain longing for a specific experience. All these things that come out of the duality of the egoic mind. Just be here. Just again and again come back to this moment. Be aware of how the mind projects in time, how it desires, how it has aversion. And if you get lost in thoughts, you come back. You can open your eyes, move your body if you need to. We have some people on stream and we have some people in the room, so I just want to show you to each other because I know some of you really appreciate that. I know they're small, but they're there. It's just nice with the sense of if you're asking a question or something, you have a sense of who else is listening and who else is there. It's good. And talking about questions, I got one written to me today from someone who watched the streams on YouTube, not live, but after. And his name is Linus, and he writes like this. Hi there. I'm trying to unravel the mystery of what we could call self-hatred at the moment. It's like I'm coming in touch with this wounded spot deep down, and feeling into it leads to some sort of clenching my teeth and, yes, hating myself. It's very confusing. As if there is this identity being seen, and it somehow is a fight with itself. And yes, it's just a sensation appearing in what I truly am, but it seems to be super challenging not to fall into identification with it and not feel as I really am this rotten, worthless human being, so to speak. Pooh, anything helpful coming up for that? Yes. I think that most people have the experience of self-loathing or self-sabotage, and many people are not so aware of this happening. They just seem to be slowly self-sabotaging themselves in situations, and they don't really know why. And that comes from unawareness of it. And what Linus is describing here is when you start to be aware of these things. They start to be very plain and very direct. And I understand the confusion of that, because otherwise it's creeping. So it's just in the background. It's in the unconscious. So it doesn't feel so obvious. But when it feels obvious, then it's so raw and plain. And it all comes from, of course, the sense of duality. Because if we go into what the sense of duality is, it separates, and through that separation, you can look at yourself and compare. This is a great part of what causes our suffering, because then we can say, I'm not as great today as I was yesterday. Or I'm better today than I was yesterday. But those are playing the same game. Even though one of them might feel nice, it has the other side of that is that dark side of it. It always has this game, and that comes from the dual sense. That you are something that relates to something in time. And this separation is what creates feelings like this. And it's also, in this separation, we're also comparable, of course, to others. And this seems to be what most people are unaware of. They've done studies in areas where people live in houses and the neighbors buy a new car, and that their neighbors also will buy a new car. It exponentially increases as soon as that happens. Because people are so unaware of comparison. So it hits them every time they come home, they see the neighbor's new car, and like, oh, I also want the new car. And we're so simple in that because of our unawareness. We don't understand that it's complete bullshit, because we just feel that something is lacking. I'm not good enough like this. And this is how our life plays out. So you can have the nicest friends, and they can be successful at what they do, and everything is going well for them, and they're very happy, but you feel miserable from that. Because you always feel like the black sheep, the odd one out. So where we're not aware of these comparisons, we suffer them so much. And And I think actually that when it's exposed and you start to feel really like you can really see that self-loathing and the self-hate in this, it is of course an opening to being with it in a healthy way. But it's so often that we go this path also when we talk about these things. We talk about a thing, and we talk about, I see this very much culturally. We talk about a thing that is negative, and we think about how to solve it. Right? This is the procedure of, this is what Linus is looking for when he is asking me this question. Anything helpful, he asks. What can help me with that? But it's also to understand the deeper truth of it. The deeper truth that what is self-love. Most people are very focused and they notice their negative traits, but they have no understanding of what is the opposite of that. What is it to love yourself? And what makes you fail at that? Because the egoic mind thrives on division. It wants comparison, it wants time, it wants to look into the future, into the past, and draw conclusions. It does not want to accept. If you ask even your spiritual questions, if you ask them from the standpoint of the egoic mind, you will always end with something. The question is something, and it says, yes, and that is fine, but there will always come some kind of doubt and some kind of splinter in it, because that is how the egoic mind operates. It never talks in a way that says, I'm just grateful for the whole of existence. Because there is nothing with that. You wouldn't say that because you will just be it. But as soon as the egoic mind has its chance, it's going to put in a little but. Yes, meditation is going great, but I have this obstacle, or I have this unhealed trauma, or I have this thing. And the difficulty with self-love is the acceptance of it. If you touched it at some point, the question will come up, am I worthy of this? Can I really embrace that? Can I be the source of love? This is much more difficult than most people think. They think that when I come to that point, everything will be fine. But the egoic mind has a very difficult time taking that in. It doesn't want to accept that full-heartedness. And it will say all kinds of things about it. It will say that it is crazy, that it is too much, that it has no limits, which is very, very true. It will have all these caveats about it. And I understand that when thoughts of loathing or disliking yourself in any way comes, that it's easy to identify with that. That is what most people walk around with. And that is what we're looking at. So the first thing will be to observe your mind. And I know that it can be, I will observe my mind when I have these difficult thoughts. No. Why not just observe your mind all the time, and you won't make any you won't say that there is any difference between what you call a difficult thought and other thoughts, because there is not. That's why when we talk about sadhana, we talk about the practice and sitting 30 minutes every day. It's just however you feel. And most people, after a while, they can do 30 minutes. If it's a so-called terrible day, or if it's a good day, you just sit, or you're very neutral, whatever. And the first part is to make that gap. I know it can sound counterintuitive to non-dual meditation, because you're really creating duality in that. You're observing your mind. But that is the first step. You have to detach from it. You cannot be unaware and completely identified with it. And there are some small obstacles in that part, because you can get addicted to it. Because if you have had a lot of anxiety, and suddenly you can just watch anxiety as a phenomena, it is just so nice. It's not completely peaceful, but it's so much more peaceful than being completely identified with it. So some people who have meditated for a while, they get stuck into this observant. They get completely mesmerized by it. But at some point, you have to join again. And for some people, it's very natural. It just comes to observance, and then it just feels like you want to invite all feelings into the space of being. For some people, it is like that, and for some people, there's some resistance with that. I'm just saying it, so if you recognize it, you will know. But we have to understand that what the mind says is just collective thoughts. It has nothing personal in that. And it's very symbolic. The mind can say things like, I want to die. I want to give up this form. But all it craves in that is that it wants to give up the egoic mind, because it's just so tired of division. And when you understand those things, you're not afraid of a thought that says, I want to die. It doesn't become big. It's just, okay, it's just the mind is now at its edge of something, and it just lashes out like this. And the more you get comfortable with your thoughts like that, and understand that they don't carry that something big in them, they're just words, the meditation becomes much easier. Because you might not know it, but most people are completely obsessed by certain words, to the point that they couldn't listen to a spiritual teacher if they used the wrong words. And I know that if I would use, instead of beingness, if I would say God every time, some of you would... That's not a good... I don't like that. It's not a good word. Because the connotations of that just... they're just so big, and they can have so much value for you in a negative way, for example. But we have to understand what we're looking at, what these words are pointing at. And if we understand that they're just pointers, you will also understand that everything in meditation points towards the same thing. If you're new to meditation, it feels like there's just so many choices. there's so many styles of meditation, even just non-dual styles. There are so many. And what does that mean? And what should I choose? And am I on the right path or wrong path? All this. But the more you practice, the more you will understand that there is no difference. Every serious meditation tradition is completely the same. It's just the cultural context of it and how that cultural context is formed, of course, and what words they're using. And I know that some teachers are very much, you shouldn't listen to other traditions because you will just get confused. But at a certain point, I think it's good to listen to other traditions. And maybe they use a word in a completely different way. I talked to a friend who's for many years been practicing Zen, Buddhist tradition, and he was listening to one of my talks, and he says, the way that you use the word experience is the way that we use mind. We say that everything is mind. So, and that is just a difference between traditions. But I say usually mind and refer to the egoic mind, not to the whole of experience. So that is just how different, and that can be like hurting your mind a little bit at first. It hurts because it's just different and you have to adapt to it. But it's also good because it dissolves the idea of how stagnant words could be. And the beauty of being aware of it is just also that the stigma of words disappear. It's not so important in how you talk. If you talk to a Christian person, you can talk in Christian terms. If you talk to a Muslim, you talk in those terms. You can talk spirituality with everyone because it doesn't matter to you that you have to use your exact phrases. Because we have to understand also that all the traditions, all the religions, and even the traditions and parts of the religions that seem very violent, the core of them is always beingness. All of them have that in them. Some kind of mystical part in it. It can in some traditions be very, very lost and very, very far away, but it is there, hidden, because that is what makes the religions compelling from the start. And then I understand that people also want, they're prone to wanting very simple answers. So it's so easy and spiritual traditions and yoga traditions and all these have the same problem with that they just, okay, this seems to be what people want, let's please them. It's so easy to go there and to make, okay, how can we make a curriculum? How can we make this education that people can understand in a comprehensive way that is very from 1 to 10 or all these things. But life is not a progression like that. There is maturity, but that doesn't happen in progression. And what creates that maturity is sometimes things that you know nothing about, or the things that you think are the worst aspects of your life. And just being able to be with all these difficult feelings, especially the strong feelings of separation, like hate, for example. Because when you start to understand that, okay, this person that you feel so much hate for, that person is suffering also. And your hate is just creating more of your own suffering. Was it Nelson Mandela who said that hate is like eating the poison and think that the other person will get hurt. So we create, and as soon as something creates division, like hate is a very, very strong example of that, creates very, very strong division. We just hurt, we just split ourselves. And that's why many of the spiritual traditions have so much focus on empathy, because it just doesn't create separation. If there is peace and you see other people suffer, and even if they lash out on you and point fingers at you, you still love them. They might not understand why you react the way you react, or why you don't react. And they might find you uninteresting or disturbing. And it's so easy to be so focused on the external world and what it is and your idea of what is going on. But that is just a reflection of what you think that you are. Because if you have a strong idea that you're in control and life is your big control panel, and if you just push the right buttons and pull the right levers, life would be fine. But that is not how it works. And I know that many people live their lives like that. But that creates a lot of frustration and suffering. And maybe some of you have noticed, and that's why you're here. Life will happen as it happens. And that is beautiful. It can be so precious. And it's so surprising. All the time, so surprising. People do strange things and funny things and but when the mind is locked in on certain things, it makes the possibility for what can happen very limited. So if you're aware of that, if you're aware of your expectations of your life, notice. And notice what happens when there is no expectations, because that will always happen in everyone's life, because suddenly something spontaneously happens. You meet a friend outside the cinema and he says, "Oh, you want to join me for this movie?" "Oh, yes, actually I have some time, I can." And you have the best cinematic experience ever because you had no expectations. But when you've been waiting 3 months for your favorite sci-fi movie to come out, it was okay, but just notice it. Notice what it does. Notice how the mind plays with time. Because that is what it is. It projects into the future, this is going to happen, and then there is expectations, and then those expectations have to be met, and then it's okay. But otherwise, it's not so good. And for the mind that likes to put a but on everything, on the end of everything, then that is a perfect scenario. Because you're always a little bit discontent with things, and the mind is relevant. But in the spontaneity of now, the mind is not relevant. Notice how these things are connected. And just question them. Question your expectations. Because it's so easy when you're into non-dual meditation that you think that there is also no intellectual part of it, because all intellectual reasoning with it is somehow not good, because I'm just beingness. Thoughts are just thoughts. But the best use of the intellect is to question the intellect and question identification. This is a great use of it. Do the things I think make me happy really make me happy? Just contemplate on it. Just look at those things. Freedom. Am I free? What is freedom? How does it pertain to my experience? What is it to be free in my experience? Is it to have lots of choices? Is it to be able to compare between a lot of things? Is that freedom? I think these are good questions, because most people live like that. And they have a feeling that there are so many possibilities now. And they say 5 possibilities. Okay, but the universe will just happen as it happens with infinite possibilities. So how can your super limited 5 possibilities feel like great freedom? Just ask. Ask yourself.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I think what you just said just really was something I was going to ask you about, because I've often thought that in my meditation I really need to just like let go of thought, and that's been very good. But I found I sort of come to a spot where I've some kind of plateau, and then listening to Francis Lucille, who's Rupert Spira's teacher, he's very sort of scientific in his approach to non-duality, which is quite appealing to some parts of me. And he said, I mean, it's what you say all the time, but he just said it in a way that it just meant that I understood it, or I was like able to understand the implication of what he said just there and then, which is exactly what you said now, which is just ask, question these notions. Because I found that when I really asked myself, like, do you believe that you are a person just walking on the surface of the earth with consciousness in my brain? Then I could honestly answer and say, yeah, I actually do believe that. This is a thought, this is a belief that I've held that I've obviously learned, because that's what we learn. But I just wonder, and I found that since then that I've been like absolutely dying to sit and meditate just so that I can just question absolutely everything. And I just find it just amazingly exciting now to do it, and very scary as well, because it's getting sort of more and more real. I'm allowing it to be sort of more real for myself. But I wonder if there's a danger of it becoming too intellectual. I know I have that tendency. So I don't know if there's some kind of balance that you would suggest. I don't know how it's been for you personally.
Yes, absolutely. There is sometimes there is, which I think is kind of crude comparison between East and West. That when you're in India, you feel like the part of the Sangha that comes from the West, they're skeptical about everything. And that the Indians who come, they're naturally so devotional. They just bow all the time, want to sing all the time, all this. And that is, of course, a cultural difference that we have. But these two parts are like two wings of a bird. It won't fly with just one of them. And if you have one of them, it will lead to the other. You will thirst for the other. And I think I've talked about this many times, but I started having from the beginning a very intellectual approach, and very much the idea of me as a doer pertaining to meditation. And even when I got into non-dual meditation, I still had this, but I started to really sense that something was lacking. And that is that other wing. You have to have something in you that bows to the greatness of it all. Because otherwise you think that you are the doer. And I could not see from that standpoint how that would be a natural thing. I always thought that everyone who bows down to anything, they have been duped, they have been fooled, they have been led into some religion or some religious concept where someone just wants to control you. I had all these things with me. So it was so difficult. And I have a father that my whole life has told me that all wars are because of religions. They just fight over calling it God or Allah, and then they kill each other. All these things. So for me, I couldn't see how it would be natural to just bow to something great. To the universe itself, or life itself, or whatever you want to call it. I found that very, very difficult. But I also understood that I needed it. So I had a revelation around it, and then slowly, it seeped into my life. But that is needed, because if it's just purely intellectual, it will be too heavy, because it will be so much I in that. Because the present moment has this quality of just being. And there is something that has to surrender in that. You cannot believe that you are going to get that beingness, or all these things become very, very dry and stiff. And I heard teachers say things like, yes, you can never intellectually solve this. And I was like, yes, perhaps you couldn't. And then you go some more. Because that is also part of the, that is the problem also if you have your identity built on being a smart person. Then that will be more of a hurdle. because so many things in life are solved by your smarts, by your wits. So you think, and of course this as well. But this subject is different. And the intellect has great potential in asking the great questions, but you will get stuck with it, and it will be too dry and too intellectual if there is not heart in it. You have to bring that part in. And you don't have to do it in any, if you're not comfortable with any, like having an altar, and you don't have to do it in any way like that. You can just be with yourself, and you can just give thanks to everything. You can just bow to nature, to life, whatever you. But there has to be some kind of recognition that I am not the doer, and I give my power to you. That sense is very good for the intellectual one. And I've seen so many beautiful, so many beings coming into their naturalness when they just see other people who are very devotional and I've seen people when it clicks for them, and it's so beautiful. They're like this. In the beginning, they're super skeptical. With my teacher, we were singing bhajans for an hour sometimes. And in the beginning, they're like really like not wanting to sing and all this because. And then when it releases, it's like they understand that this is the piece of the puzzle that I'm lacking, but I thought it was something else.
I feel like for me right now, like I know you've spoken a lot about trust and also the role that bhakti plays for you and being able to bow and stuff. But I find now, I guess what I'm wondering, like very specifically, is like it feels like now that I have a lot of I feel like I'm allowing myself now to really lift up. Like really look under the carpet and see, okay, what do I really believe? Like maybe I haven't been allowing myself to really look so closely at these deeply held beliefs about that I am a person, for example. And it feels as though I am able to allow myself more acceptance, more trust in doing so. But I don't know is that just a game as well? I'm also aware that is this just the ego? Because the ego can stick around in that case. Then it can be it can hang along and become enlightened. But I know that's not possible. But I just wonder if this, I don't know what your instinct is, if this is just, because I guess you know me maybe a little bit now, and my tendencies for...
And just the sense that you have that there might be the egoic mind in all this is a good, healthy skepticism, I would say, because assume that, and it also, the egoic mind loves to pose. Do you understand what I mean by that? It can create a facade of something. Like, for example, say, oh, I'm going to embrace bhakti. And it does all the right things outwardly. It creates an altar at home with the pictures, and it just acts. There is no heart at all. It just acts. So now I'm done with that. So I don't have to... Do you understand? And also it can distance itself through calling everything around something amazing. That is also a way that the egoic mind says that something is not me. because it can put it on a pedestal. Oh, this beautiful bhakti practice, it's so rah, and make it into something big, but it's actually super practical. And very much just here, and you don't need anything for it. You can just, when you come down to the ocean, you can just bow to the vastness of everything, whatever it is. But the egoic mind loves to make it into something. And then it likes to show that off and love to tell people about it. Talk about it a lot. So all these tendencies are possible with everything. And just because we're into the domain of meditation, it does not mean that the egoic mind is automatically out the door. It's absolutely not. It likes to take part in all of it, if it can. Yes. Someone else with a question today? Yes, Håkan.
You said something about the core of every religion in a positive way. I don't remember if it was truth or non-duality. But then I wonder about Muhammad. Wasn't he a warrior? And he was kind of the core of Islam.
Yes, it depends on your definition of that, of course. But also in the Muslim traditions are the Sufis, and they very much are mystics.
Yeah.
If you listen to Lelim Vohanli or some other Sufis, you will just see that their message is the same as any non-dual message, and there will always be a part of religions that, of course, there are militant part of religions that are can be very extreme and very violent, but at those fundamentals, there's always a core of they would call it knowing God. I would call it knowing yourself. There will always be a part of the religion, a core of the religion that says everyone is the same, everything is love, these kind of things. Then they can be interpreted and they can be used in different ways, blah, 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 all that. But at the core is always these things. The idea at the core is a path to peace, to find inner peace. But what that means to people, as you know, can be very, very complicated. It can be the idea of eradicating other people, or yeah. But
could he have been enlightened and being a warrior?
I think many more things are possible than we think, and our idea of that if someone is a warrior, they're automatically discarded as non-spiritual. But there are certain ways where of course you should defend yourself, or if something violent happens, there has to be some people who meets that violence with force. So all these things are, but we also think that you can be have a very utopian image as a meditator, where it's just if everyone just understood themselves. But the world is messy. It is as it is, and there is so much ignorance, and there is so much hate, and all these things, and politicians, they use people's fear of things against each other, and all these But there has to be, on one level, just an acceptance of that, and just also understanding what am I in this? Do I have the idea that I have the button and the levers and that I can change everything to my will? And is that do other people enjoy that, or is it just super much violence on them? Do you look at these things really and see what they are? Because you can think, yes, I'm into non-dual meditation. It's such a great thing. I'm going to preach it to everyone. People will hate you. If you tried it, people will hate you. They will feel forced and they will say, I will never try that. Because the only opening we have to understanding is that there is freedom around it. That's why I'm saying contemplate on what freedom is. What is it for you? Would you like someone else who is very convinced that their worldview is the right view really push it down your throat? No, you would hate it. And it probably happened to all of you at some point. Yes. So what is real freedom? What is real freedom in speech? What is freedom in action? And I believe that you can hold all kinds of positions and be interested in non-dual meditation, of course. But maybe your interest in it will shift. And depending on how your approach to it has been, you might abandon certain aspects. A good friend of mine, she was a psychologist, and she started with practicing a lot of meditation and got really into it. And then after a while felt like, I cannot be true with this if I'm working as a psychologist in this way that I've been used to be working. So she stopped, and now she's doing something else. So you just have to be true with yourself, and I cannot see any conflict in being a warrior or holding some other position and still being interested in it. I think that would be great. And I think that it's so easy that it becomes an idea of how you should live your life if you're a meditator. What can I be interested in? Can I be interested in martial arts and still be a meditator? Of course. But everything depends on how you approach it. And someone who is living on the surface as opposed a very spiritual life, but they're always competing, they're always creating division, they're always judging, then it doesn't matter. And I think it's beautiful when it's unlikely, because it just shows the possibilities of that things can be so different. You don't have to become a meditator. That is your nature. There's nothing really to create.
have a question about a realization I had a while back, that like we as humans evolved on this planet to survive a bit better than the others. So we developed, and not just humans, but animals in general, we developed the sight and the hearing and the sense of touch. Like if you could imagine a person living on a planet with very low gravity, they might not be able to sense touch the way we do. And so we are very limited in the way we perceive the universe, depending on what senses we developed being here. And I guess the question is, do you think there is that a limitation in understanding the beingness that you are talking about? Do you understand the question?
Yes. I think that animals can also understand beingness, especially from example if they're around people who are just as they are. But our intellectual capacity makes this part that Richard was talking about also, we can question the idea of I. And that is very powerful thing. But we can also get stuck in that. But we have to understand that that is a great thing that we can talk about this, and you can check in. We can have a gathering like this. And when we talk about things, you can check and notice that you can stay with your beingness. And the subjects we talk about here might trigger that in you, this inner stillness. And it's like you remember it again. Many people have this feeling. But we also have to understand that the complexity of the egoic mind, and that we can have such developed thoughts about the future, and we can imagine things very, very detailed, and all these things also are not always helpful for us, because we can be so drawn into them. And if you're good at visualizing things, that can be those thoughts can be very, very strong. But the beauty is that we can have this conversation. Because in the animal kingdom, it's not a subject.
As far as we know.
Maybe among dolphins. But from an evolutionary point, there's also, we see the evolutionary steps with children. They also come to a point where they create a very, very strong sense of I and mine. And work with that. And then they come to a point in their teens when they really suffer there. I want to die. No one understands me. All these feelings that are also how the egoic mind develops. And when it gets overwhelming. And then you get into adulthood, and then when everything is formed, if you start to have a spiritual practice, you unravel everything. But it seemed to be unavoidable. You have to come to this crystallization of the egoic mind to be interested in exploring it, it seems. At least for most. And we think so oftenly about the egoic mind as something purely negative. But it actually shows us all this. All the fears, all the things, all the stagnant things, all the loops it creates. They show how we are stuck. That's why awareness becomes so important. Because otherwise there is ignorance and there is loops. And that is not a good combination. So awareness breaks that, and not always in the way that we think is in the nice way. That is the enjoyable way. Sometimes it's like, yes, like this question that Linus wrote. It's very, what is apparent to you is that you hate yourself. That is not nice, but it's very good to be aware of that instead of it just seeping into everything. And you don't understand why you self-sabotage and why things are as they are. But the self-awareness is difficult because we are home blind. We don't see our tendencies because we're so used to our tendencies. And sometimes we don't have perspective of them because we live through the eyes of this body. So we just see our own behavior and how people react to it, and we say, the world is like this. We don't understand if we would react differently, everyone else would also react differently. But if you are aware of yourself, you just notice how different you can become in different contexts. So then you understand this is a big factor. This is a big thing. If I don't get triggered, it will be a completely different outcome. One little fear goes and the whole world changes. But it's so easy to point fingers, to say that the world is out there and it's like this and like this. People are doing this, people are doing that, all these kind of things. And I understand that the realization also that life comes from you can feel very harsh. Because if you've lived with the idea that you can control your environment and that you can control things and make them a certain way, then it can feel there can come feelings of hopelessness, all these kind of things. But that is also part of the realization that everything is you. And the more that opens up, it will start perhaps from hopelessness. But the more it opens up, it also shows you that everything is you. Your neighbor is you. Your car is you. Your groceries are you. And it just changes everything. Most people, when they think of something precious, they don't think of the present moment. They think of a particular thing. Something outside of themselves or a feeling or something. But the most precious is this. It's also the only thing that we have. There is no future. The idea of future is happening in the present moment. The idea of the past is also happening in the present moment. Your confusion, your ignorance, your unawareness is also happening in the present moment. But we devalue it. I see almost no one talk about that as a high value thing. If you look around in society, you will see people talk about this is an important thing, this is an important thing. But there are so few people saying awareness is the most important thing. Which is crazy. That is crazy.
Because everybody can have it.
I'm jokingly saying sometimes the accessibility is really there. 100% accessibility to the present moment. It's not that you have it only 82%, but you have 97%. It's 100% for all.
You talked earlier about meditating every day for example, half an hour, whether we feel good or bad. But how about feeling, today I don't want to meditate, but today I want to meditate for a long time. For me, it's like I have periods where when I naturally go into meditation and periods where I don't want to meditate.
Yes. But that means that there is something already established. If there is a naturalness with the meditation, it comes by itself. There is something that is established in, and you will naturally come back to that. Then you don't have to be so strict about it. But when I talk about that it's important to have a routine, it is to break that initial barrier of thoughts that is just, for many people, just constant with the egoic mind's agenda. If that has been broken and you have the spark have ignited a little flame in you, then it will just come. The longing for it will come. All these things would come very naturally. And the only thing to be careful with that is that there can come pockets of avoidance because there is challenges in meditation. So you start to say instead, I don't feel like it right now. So in that sense, it can also be, you just have to be aware of those things. And for the egoic mind, it's so easy to creep in because if there is too much starvation of the egoic mind, it feels there can be a lot of fear around it, and then that can lead to avoidance. I'm just talking from experience here. But if the flame is lit, then it's usually as you describes. It just feels like, okay, I have to let go of trying for a little while, and then it just comes very natural, and you just want to be with it, and then it just, okay, it can come and go as it does. But stay alert with it. See to it that the mind doesn't creep in and make excuses. It will be different for all of you. The things we talk about, some of you, if someone asks a question like this, it will resonate with you, and for someone else, it's completely different in their experience. And I know that it is so easy to compare also your progression to someone else's progression, but also that the parameters for that, for what creates the progression, is not so easily translatable. Because what is challenging for one of you is not challenging for the next person. And vice versa. And sometimes you won't know exactly where you're at, and that's also fine. To me, one of the most surprising things was also that when I was with Swami Shashwat, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to ask my teacher. He was there, I was with him every day in the ashram, but I had no idea what to say to him, but I just felt lost. And I could say, yeah, I feel lost, and he will be like this. So then I asked the universe, please show me. I have no idea where to go from here. I feel completely stuck. Please show me. And you can only do that if there is some bhakti in your heart, if you have some faith. Because otherwise you will start to use your mind and start to think or look up in books and try to read your way through it, or start long conversations with the most intellectual ones you know. And all you need to do is say, please show me. And I cannot stress how powerful that is. And the world is symbolic, so it will show you. If there are no people, it will use the trees and the birds, and if there are people, maybe they will do something. We think that many people think that they look at life through some kind of objective lens. You can say, but you see the same world as I see it. We watch the same news. We have the same experience, you would say. But it's not like that. The depth of the experience is what you think that you are. That is what you see in everything. If you think a lot about stealing things, you will see a thief in everyone. The mind is like that. It's more of a projector. It's sending things out, not so much the other way around most of the time. Just looks at the world through the lens of who am I? So that's why this question is the most powerful one. Who is experiencing this moment? Is that a person? Is that an entity? Is there a person inside the body that is experiencing it? What is this experience? Where is the point that you're looking at this experience from? Is there a point of observation? When you refer to I, what do you refer to? A recurrent thought? An emotional center? What is I? How far away from you is it? Can you observe your idea of I? And who is observing it in that case? Where is the source of the experience? Can you stay as it? If you go to this sense of I, everyone has that, right? A sense of I, somehow. Not someone is not sure. There is a, excuse me. There is an experience of I am, but it is not a thing. Can you follow how that is possible? Because you might say, I am the body. You have a sense that you are the body. But you can also experience, in your field of experience is the experience of body, right? But there is also the experience of mat, walls, ceiling, people. So what is it that sets the boundary for the I? Why is the I the body? Why is it not all of experience? And why do you sometimes have a sense that it is more of the experience? Your immediate family, for example, or people that you care a lot about. They feel very much in your field of I. So it changes. And in deep sleep, where is the body? And you don't say when you wake up, oh, I was not here, now I'm back. You say, I slept very well. Thank you. I just want to open your mind to the idea that it's not so rigid. The idea of I is something that we create. And that's why it can be so extremely different. You talk to two people who live in the same city, but they have a completely different view of what that life is. They might have quite similar lives even. Because of what they think they are and what other people are. Are strangers something they should be afraid of? Or are they a potential friend? There's a big difference. And kindness, is it a weakness? Or is it just beauty? All these ideas affect what you think your life is. I'm passing out some papers for you on stream. Some bhajans. You can just join. They're simple. So Sanna, which one?
I don't want to choose it.
Okay.
That
Yes.
You're the only one.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. One more. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lovely, lovely to see you all. Yes, and please give a donation if you can and have the possibility. Thank you.